Yep, it's apart again. There were several things that occurred here. The biggest thing I want to talk about is the PTO clutch. And before we get into exactly what happened, I just want to let you all know that I did a long form video about a year ago about putting a bolt in with Loctite. Well, that obviously it didn't hold. That's spoiler alert for later in the video. It didn't hold. So I'm moving that video from public to unlisted. And there's an associated YouTube short, which I will also be moving to unlisted. And I'll put a link to both in the description if you want to go check them out. But they're obsolete. This video is going to supersede. That is the right word, isn't it? It's going to have to be. This video will supersede those other two. And I will put out an associated YouTube short when I get done with this long form video. So, yeah, the biggest thing is the PTO clutch. The Loctite did not hold. The old bolt backed out. This is a new bolt. It's the same thing. So there's plenty of thread engagement on this 2 3/4 bolt, which is what's in... Oh, wait, actually, okay, I just realized since I'm moving those old videos to private, I probably ought to go into more detail about the clutch. But the biggest thing you need to know right now is that, come on, focus camera. You can see in there how it kind of egged out the threads and ground them down. That's not good, but we still have, I mean, there's plenty of meat, there's plenty of meat left in there for this thing to grab. I've already run a tap through and everything is all good and cool. Why am I, oh yeah, I need to throw that all the way back in there. I don't want dirt and stuff to get in here because I cleaned it the other day. So we'll go over the other issues later. Let's get the clutch part out of the way because that's the important thing. So this is the old bolt that came out. If we look here, you can see it pulled the threads on the very end. You can also see, if we spin it around here, that is the Loctite. I am almost certain. It was blue when I put it in. Now, I could swear that I put more Loctite on this damn thing than that little amount. But it's entirely possible that I only put a little amount on because I am extremely hesitant to use Loctite on anything. I feel like most people are far too eager to use it. And so it's entirely possible I was pretty chintzy with it. That coupled with the fact that it's very difficult to get that bolt tight because you can't stop the engine from rotating when you are tightening it. It's just very hard to get it tight. So to solve this problem, the updated procedure is to use red Loctite, a new bolt, obviously, and an impact gun. And this stuff should have a lot more, Loctiteness than this blue stuff that I put on last time. So I'll be a lot more liberal with it. I'll impact it in. No, I'm not going to go crazy with it, but I'll impact it in, and then it shouldn't come out. Now, another thing that did happen, when this bolt came out, it can't come all the way out and the clutch can't fall off just because when it's in the machine, the bolt will hit the gearbox arm for the deck. So this was just hitting that, but it was still backed all the way out, which is why it destroyed just those outside few threads on the crank. Which, hey, I'm not complaining. I don't want to know what a new crankshaft for that would cost if I ruin the threads on it. So this can't go anywhere, just if this happens to you. The clutch can't fall off. This was still working. It's just, I'd taken a break the last time I was out mowing, and I heard this awful rattling sound, and I got off, looked at it, and yeah, sure enough, this thing was just sitting in there dangling. So, unfortunately, it also broke the clutch itself, which I'm pretty sure this was screwed up from the first time the bolt came out. Not horrible, but this part's okay. It was running a little unevenly. What broke was right there. That nasty crack. So I could have put this back on and run it, and, it could have run for 5 minutes or 5 years. There's no need to gamble. Another one of these clutches was $100 from the Walmarts, and I've got it right here, so I'll throw that back on. The original bolt that was with the original clutch with this mower when it was new was 2.5 inches. This is a 7/16 fine thread bolt. Of course, it's grade 8. I originally put the same size of bolt in. That is despite the fact that this clutch is a little bit wider than the original, and I had to put a washer in to space stuff out right. So when the first bolt I put in came out, when I was getting the mower going, I went back in with 2 3/4. That is the correct length. The length of the bolt is not in question here. So I'm going to go back in with another 2 3/4, 7/16 bolt. And that should hold it in with the red thread locker. That's the hope anyway. So if this happens to you, that's just what I'm going to do. Originally, I had phrased this as an instructional video, but I think it's pretty obvious at this point that my fixes do not always work. Okay, so the other issues the other major issue I knew I was having was that these spindle bearings were going out because the mower was not cutting right. It looked horrible. It was cutting good enough to get stuff, trimmed up. It wasn't like scalping the yard, but if I turned too hard, it would. So I knew those bearings were going out, and it's hard to, well, they're all greasy. Okay, well, probably should have cleaned them before I turned the camera on, but trust me when I say there ain't much left in these bearings. They were about to come flying apart. So I've got new bearings here, new Spincos, because these come from Carnell Sales. These are like $5.50 a piece, if I remember right. Now, they are trying to think of the right name. They are a take-up bearing, I think is the right term. They come with this locking collar. You don't need that locking collar, but you do need the raised portion here, on the outside. And I kind of talked about this in the spindle video. Did I do a dedicated video on the spindles? I don't remember. But whatever video it was where I put the spindles together, just remember that the raised portion of the bearing goes on the outside because these spacers go on the inside of the spindle housings. So, and here are the spindle housings. They cleaned up. They're fine. But you want your raised portion facing up where you can see it. Like on here, this is the bottom side, and this would be the top side that you would see in the deck. Both of the raised portions on those bearings face up towards you. You should be able to see them. And then, like I said, you could toss those collars or use them for something else. I put these under my PlayStation to keep it cooler instead of getting overheated, which for some reason it's prone to do. And now that I've got extras, I can put them under my laptop, and now it won't get so hot. So, while I was disassembling the deck to get the bearings out of the spindle housings, I was just looking everything over to see how it's performing after about 60, 70 hours of operation. This pulley is holding up very, very well. The associated idler that goes here is holding up pretty well. The spring, oddly enough, is still doing extremely well. Where did the deck belt go? Where did I throw that damn thing? It's actually, okay, so here's the deck belt. It is still, other than a few spots like right down there, it's actually holding up really good. But I think I'm going to go ahead and replace it, and I'll just keep this as a backup. The spindle pulleys are wearing just fine. There's no issues there. One of the things that they said in the manual, and I talked about this when I was putting the deck together, the parts list said to use Loctite on these bolts because these go in and that's what retains the spindle through the spindle housing and holds the pulley to it and all that good stuff. They said use Loctite on these. I didn't because, again, I'm extremely hesitant to use Loctite, but I'm going to this time because more than once I've had one of these bolts start backing out and the spindle started to drop. Now, I don't think that's what killed the spindle bearings, but it certainly didn't help. And then, yes, I will be replacing the key stock. I've got enough left, I'm pretty sure. The other major thing I noticed... Oh! Why'd you guys let me do that? Anyway, the other thing I noticed is that I need to shove that pulley on the gearbox a little bit better because it's wanting to hit the deck and wear stuff. So I need to see if I can shove it on there a little more. Otherwise, it's wearing fine. The spindles themselves look okay. I mean, they're covered in dirt now, so I gotta clean them. The threads on them are all good. I put new old stock blades on not very long ago. I just sharpened them. They're doing fine. I want to see if I can fix the leak on the hydraulic tank, but I don't know that I'm gonna be able to. I'm gonna try. And the final thing, keep this in mind right here. because this pulley is what goes on that solid spindle on the gearbox arm, or the PTO arm, whatever you want to call it. So originally, when I put it on, well, okay, very originally when I put it on, it was held on with a washer and a nut because it needed to be centered on that spindle. There was no bushing in there. What I discovered was, though, when I did that, I stopped it from being able to pivot because it's a 2-pulley tensioner, right? And so with this tightened down on that little spindle, that stopped that 2-pulley tensioner on the arm from being able to do this, and it was wearing my belts out. So when I realized it needed a bushing in there, I found this old socket that seemed about right, so I drilled it out the rest of the way, and I put it on in there, and it worked pretty good for a while, but I noticed it was getting kind of loose. Where'd it go? Come back here. I noticed it was getting kind of loose, so oddly enough, Tractor Supply has bronze bushings, so I grabbed one, and it fits. It's not an enormous amount better, but it's considerably better. So I'm going to cut it so it's flush with the bearing and the pulley, and I'm just going to put a nut on. I'm going to forego the washer, and that should help this out quite a bit. I think this is one of the major reasons I'm still destroying the arm belts after about 10 operating hours. So other than the mess you guys had me make, which, I mean, how dare you? I got to pick all this up now, and it's all dirty. After all the great lengths I went to keep it clean, sitting outside, you know, with the blowing dirt from the driveway, now it's all filthy. So other than that, everything's actually fine with it. I haven't lost any transmission belts. I mentioned in the review that the transmission belt was an issue, but, you know, honestly, I forgot to mention this. I greased where this thing pivots. This is the tensioner for the transmission belt. And ever since I greased that, I haven't lost a single transmission belt. This is the one that's been on there right here. That little bit of wear is, I mean, not bad, actually. I don't see any reason to throw this out. I'm just going to put it back on there and run it. I think it'll be just fine. And, no, never mind. I'm not going to say anything. It's not relevant. So, yeah, everything's running good. It just, if I could stop this damn PTO from coming off, then I'll be golden. Because it's, I mean, this thing's been working. We've had a lot of rain this year, and so I've mowed quite a bit. And I got a lot to mow now. So, yeah, the paint job on the deck is not, I mean, it's okay, but it's, you know, it lasted about as long as one could expect. And, oh, I need a seat. The seat is absolutely struggling. But other than that, it's running fine. I think I will make more of an effort to grease the spindles. I was afraid I was over-greasing them, and I think I was actually under-greasing them a little bit. But these are also $5.50 bearings, so, you know, they lasted about 60 hours. And so if every 60 hours I got to put new bearings in it, that's about once a year. So if every year I got to put new bearings in it, well, that's not a big deal. I'll just have to keep some of these on hand. I'll put a little more grease in it, and if I can stop those spindles from falling out, we should be good. So, to recap, big thing, PTO, use red Loctite. I'm going to use an impact gun. They send you this nut. Or, sorry, the nut is part of the PTO, so duh, of course they send it. But it doesn't sit raised like this. It actually sits, hang on here. It actually sits flush. This is important. I should mention this real quick. All right, it sits flush, okay? So it's made so you can get a wrench on it, except you can't get a wrench on it because they've got this raised portion of the pulley that gets in the way. You can't really hold it with channel locks either. It just wants to slip. That's why I'm using the impact gun. If I could get on this with, I think this is 1.25 inches. No, it's 1.5 inches. Anyway, if I could get on this with a wrench and hold it here, I could get this bolt tight, no problem. But because I can't do that, I'm hoping that a little bit of vibration will sink this bolt in good without breaking anything. And then this won't come off until I want it to. If I have to get the torch out and heat up the bolt a little bit to, you know, melt the Loctite and back it out with the impact gun, then so be it. Because these clutches, I mean, they should last for several hundred hours before they go out. And since this is self-adjusting, I don't have to take it off to adjust it or anything. So I want it to be semi-permanent. So we're going to try this stuff out. and see how it goes. So, my apologies for the previous video that contained inaccurate information. Like I said, it will be unlisted in the description. This will be the current proper video, and I'll have a short out directing people to this if they have a similar problem with their mower. So I hope that I didn't cause anybody any issues. If you did follow my previous advice, I would recommend that if it hasn't come out, I would get it in your shop and take the bolt out and put a new one in with proper Loctite as soon as possible, just so you don't destroy the clutch or damage your crankshaft. Other than that, I think that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to get this stuff back together and get back to mowing. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you in the next one.